إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا ويهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We continue in Kitab al-Nikah by the great illustrious scholar al-Imam Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah rahmatun wasi'ah, who died 852 after the hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we continue in Kitab al-Nikah. We stopped at the hadith with the authority Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhu. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أيما عبد تزوج بغير إذن مواليه أو أهله فهو عاهر. رواه أحمد وأبو داود والنسائي والترمذي وصححه وكذلك ابن حبان. The hadith where we stopped at prior before the Eid, or prior to the Eid, was the hadith of Jabir. Where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned and said, he says, any concubine or any slave that marries without the permission of his mawali, or the one who's in charge of him, or his family, then he's a ahir. And he's a person that is what? Ahir. Ahir meaning that he's a fornicator. Or he's committed something what? He's considered something tremendous, which is zina. He's a ahir. Ahir. Ain alif ha ra. Ahir. It's in your books. The next hadith after that, in the authority Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that it says in the next hadith, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يجمع بين المرأة وعمتها ولا بين المرأة وخالتها. And the hadith is muttafaqun alayh, meaning al-Bukhari and Muslim, the exact same wording. Agreed upon, meaning it's in the Sahihain and al-Bukhari Muslim, the exact same wording. And there's la ghubara ala sihhatih. There's nothing wrong with its authenticity. We said this hadith and the one before also coincides with the chapter of Kitab al-Nikah, the chapter of marriage. You notice in the hadith it says, Ayyuma abdin, that any concubine or slave that marries without the permission of the one who's in charge of him, his mawali or his mawla. As we know, the word mawla can be used for the concubine or the slave himself, and it could be used for the one who's in charge of him likewise. It could be used for both. Mawla can be for the concubine or for the slave himself, and it can be also used for the one who's in charge or the master. Mawla. As we know, Mawla also means the freed slave. It can mean all of those meanings. It can mean the actual slave himself, or the one who's in charge, the master, and for the one who's been liberated. He's also called a Mawla. You'll see for certain ahadith and certain tabi'een from the scholars of the past, it was said Mawla so-and-so, Mawla so-and-so, Mawla Abi Bakr, Mawla Fulan, Mawla Fulan. That means the freed slave of Abu Bakr, the freed slave of such and such. You will notice that the majority of Ahl Ilm in the past, or not majority, correct my words, that a lot of the ulama of the past were all mawali. All of them were what? A lot of them were what? Not all of them. Astaghfirullah. A lot of them were mawali. A lot of them were free slaves. From the greatest scholars of this religion were free slaves. As you'll find in a lot of different ruwat and narrations of hadith, it said, Mawla so-and-so, Mawla so-and-so, Mawla so-and-so, Mawla so-and-so. So the word Mawla can be used for the slave, can be used for the one who's in charge, the master, and it can be used for the one who's also likewise a freed slave. So Mawla can mean, was comprehensive for all of those meanings. Mawla. Notice in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned and said that any slave there is, and he put emphasis on it, ayyuma abdin. Like any slave there is, he did not attain permission from his one who's in charge or from his family, then he's a ahir. When the Prophet ﷺ mentioned it, said, without the permission. When he mentioned this hadith, this is an indication that if he married without the permission of his mawla, then his marriage will be invalid. The meaning of the hadith is just as the great Imam Salih Fawzan bin Abdullah al-Fawzan hafidhullah wa ra'ahu, he says, وهو أن يتزوج المملوك بدون إذن سيده لأنه مملوك لسيده فلا يجوز له أن يتزوج ولا يبيع ولا أن يشتري ولا أن يتصرف إلا بإذن سيده فلو تزوج بغير إذن سيده فنكاحه باطل أما إذا تزوج بإذن سيده فنكاحه صحيح. From those invalid marriages is that a person or the one who's a concubine or slave that he marries without the permission of the one who's in charge of him. Don't forget to pray two rakats. Don't forget to pray two rakats. Why? Because he's owned by his what? The one who's in charge of him. If it's not permissible for him to get married, nor is it permissible for him to sell or purchase, except by the permission of the one who's in charge of him. And if he was to marry without the permission of his sayyid, the one who's in charge of him, or his master, then his nikah will be invalid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book, Jalla Sha'nuh, that he says, وَأَنْكِحُ الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book, he says, marry off the ayama minkum, meaning those youthful ones, from the male and females. He said, marry them off. And this is a highly emphasized matter, emphasizing the importance of nikah. And Allah Ta'ala commanded this in the command form in this ayah, which is the Surah An-Nur, where he says, وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ. He says, marry off the ayama, those youthful ones from the what? From the male and females from amongst you, and the righteous. And also those who are from your ibad, meaning those who are under your authority, from those concubines, whether they be male or female, meaning from those slaves. Marry them all off. For Allah Ta'ala in his book commands one to marry all of them off, highly emphasizing the importance of nikah, of course, and also showing that is what? It's one to attain spreading love and growing communities and families amongst one another, so the love can grow and augment amongst the communities. But however, like we said in this narration, the Prophet ﷺ, notice he said, ahir, that if he does this without the permission of his what? Of his master or the one who's in charge of him, he says he's ahir. The meaning of ahir means he's zanin. He's a fornicator. He's a fornicator. So this necessitates two things. That what? He fell into fornication. And number two, also likewise, the marriage that was performed was invalid. Nikahuhu ghayru sahih. The nikah, or the marriage, is invalid. So what we extract from this hadith is that it's a prerequisite for the validity of nikah, or the marriage of the concubine, is that he has to attain the permission of the one who's in charge of him. Right, everyone? That he has to attain the permission of his sayyid, the one who's in charge of him. I wanted also to refer everyone back to a recording or a lecture that our brother, our virtuous brother Abu Khadija Abdul-Wahid ibn A'lam, that he did in regards to the difference between the slavery in Islam and the European slavery or the American slavery. How Islam is totally different. And it's not how the slavery was of what's the perception of us in the West. It's totally different. So, because one might read and say Islam, that it caused to slavery and oppressing people. La. If you go back to that lecture, and I highly emphasize that one listen to that lecture carefully, because he brings tremendous benefits in regards to distinguishing or bringing a difference between the slavery, what was in Islam, and the slavery or the Eurocentric type of slavery, or the slavery that was started in the West, and how it was oppressive and it was demeaning and humiliating, and how it removed insaniya, it removed, or as if one was dealt as if he wasn't even a human being, as if he was just an animal or cattle or worse. That's not the slavery of Islam. And you'll find ahkam in regards to that. And I have highly advised everyone to educate themselves, especially to listen to that lecture that Abu Khadija Abdul-Wahid had did, because it will enlighten you. So if some of these non-Muslims out here try to use that against you, you will have the correct answer so you can address this affair. And also it will be good for your faith to know that Islam is the haqq. Because some people will think this and they will hear this, and shaitan will put a doubt in one's heart or in his conviction or in his creed, and he will become confused. And I highly emphasize for brothers to listen to that lecture. That lecture is excellent. And he brings all the different characteristics, like we said, between the slavery in Islam and the Eurocentric, oppressive, humiliating slavery of the West. Understand, everyone? So if you can, it's on YouTube. It's on there. It's on YouTube. Just type in Abu Khadija, slavery in Islam, come right up. Or it will give you or refer you to that particular lecture. So it says in the hadith, or what is extracted from it, أنه يشترط لصحة نكاح العبد أن يأذن سيده إذا أذن له فهل هو يزوج نفسه. Now the question comes, if he obtains the permission from his sayyid, from the one who's in charge of him, or the master of the slave, can he marry himself off, or does the one in charge marry him off? That's the question. هل يزوج نفسه أو لا بد يزوجه السيد. Does he marry himself off, or does his master or the one who's in charge of him, he has to marry him off? Or marry him, excuse me. Marry him off is colloquial. Marry him. نقول ظاهر الحديث أنه إذا أذن, that which is apparent from the hadith, that if he gives him permission, what's apparent from the hadith and the narration that we read in the book, that he can marry himself. He can marry himself. In contrast to the woman, as we know, the woman needs permission from the wali, and he needs to what? Marry her off likewise. He takes charge of what? Both affairs. The wali or the wakil for the woman, she has to obtain permission from him, and likewise what? He has to marry her off. Right, everyone? But however, the woman, of course, she's not ahlan. She doesn't have the qualification of that ahliyah. Those affairs that allows the validity of her marriage by doing it or taking it on herself. Meaning, if she was to do it herself, then her marriage would be what? Invalid. Her marriage would be invalid. If a woman married herself off, or she so-called went to a marriage and sat in some type of ceremony, and she gave her hand in marriage to her husband herself, the marriage is what? Invalid. And we say invalid, we mean with Allah ta'ala. Because at the end of the day, that's what's important. Not the fact of this so-called facade of this world that we live in, that all people care about is a facade, and whether or not so-and-so sees your marriage to be valid. What's the most important is that Allah sees your marriage to be valid. Because that's what's going to count in the hereafter, when we come on the day of resurrection. Was your marriage with Allah valid? So laysat ahlan, that the woman does not have that ahliyah. She does not have that superiority or those type of qualifications that will allow her marriage to be what? Valid. However, in contrast to the abd, the concubine, however, he is ahl. Of course, if he's a male especially, then he has that power for himself, for the aqd nikah, for himself. So if he attains the marriage for what? From his owner, then that should suffice. He said, وَلِذَلِكَ إِذَا عَتَّقَ زَوَّجَ نَفْسَهُ فَعَدَمَ تَزْوِيجِ نَفْسِهِ مَا دَامَ مَمْلُوكًا لا لعدم الأهلية ولكن لوجود مانع وهو الملك. إذن للسيد إذا أراد يزوج العبد طريقان. So we just sum up from this by saying there's two ways that a abd can be married off. Number one, أن يقول ولي المرأة, for example, that the one who's in charge of the woman will say to the concubine, this is the first type, زوجت عبدك فلانا ibnati fulana. He says that the wali of the woman will say, زوجت عبدك فلانا ibnati fulana. That he would say to the what? For the one who's the owner, the man will say, I marry my daughter to your what? To your concubine. I marry my daughter to your what? To the concubine or to the slave. I marry my daughter to the concubine or to your concubine. So the Sayyid will say, so the one who's in charge, what will he say? I accept the nikah for my what? Li mawlaya. Because it's not permissible to say abdi. It's not permissible to say my slave. Even if you look at Kitab al-Tawheed, it's not permissible. You would say ghulami or mawlaya, like the one I'm in charge of. So if you notice the al-Fadh, even the hadith, if you look at Kitab al-Tawheed, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul-Wahhab, he says not permissible to say abdi, my slave. But however, say ghulami wa mawlaya, as it says in the hadith. Say ghulami, like my child, or you would say ghulami mawlaya, the one who I'm in charge of. So the first step, the person would say, I marry my daughter to your concubine, or to your slave, I marry my daughter. So the one in charge of the concubine would say, I accept the nikah for the one I'm in charge of. Li ghulami or mawlaya. Jayyid? Everyone understand? يقيد لا يقول قبلت نكاح فقط. He says he has to restrict it and specify it. He can't just say I accept the marriage and then just be quiet. He has to specify, say, Naam, I accept the marriage for my what? For my what? For my ghulam, or for my what? For the one I'm in charge of, mawlaya. The second way, الصيغة الثانية, he says أن يقول السيد لعبده تزوج. فيقول ولي المرأة للعبد نفسه زوجتك ابنتي فلانة. The second way is that the Sayyid, the one who's slave, the one who's in charge of the concubine will say, get married, tazawwaj. He said, go ahead, get married. So then the woman or the man who's in charge of the woman will say, he will say to her, Zawajtuka binti fulana. Basically, he's directing it directly towards the concubine instead of the what? The master here. saying to him, I marry my daughter to you. So the first example was what, everyone? He said it to his what? He said it to the Sayyid. He said it to the one who's in charge. This one, he's just saying it directly to the what? To the concubine. Zawajtuka binti fulana. I marry you to my what? Daughter so-and-so. And the slave or the concubine would say, I accept. Qabilt. Jayid? The beauty of this is how our religion, like we said, is comprehensive for everything. Every type of affair you can think of, there's details, explain details thoroughly of how to conduct in that affair, of what will please Allah. In contrast to the Christian Judaism, they make things up from their own selves and then they want enforce it upon their followers. In contrast, you'll find that there's wahi, there's revelation, still and it's still tact in its purest form and how it was revealed to know how to conduct in these affairs. Even to the point of the next hadith, what we're going to talk about here, in which a lot of non-Muslims think that it's permissible for men to just marry any woman he wants. It's not. There's boundaries to it, and there's a what? There's protocol and there's details. As we'll talk about in the next narration that we read on the authority of Abu Hurairah. Because a lot of non-Muslims, they think just because we can marry more than one woman, they think it's just any woman. It could be your mother, your daughter, your aunt, and we say, no, that's not the case. We have ayat, there's certain ayat in the book of Allah, subhanahu, jalla, sha'nu, saying what's allowable for who to marry from women and who is not. And we'll also talk about how the bid'ah or the innovation that the Christians came with and the people of the book, where they left off. Actually, Jesus, the son of Mary, taught them polygyny and how he also allowed it. That was something that's the sharia of all the prophets. Every single last prophet had allowed that a woman or that a man marry more than one woman. That was something that was known. It was not something that was strange. He says, rather, the Christians came, removed that from their sharia. That was from their bid'ah. That was from their innovation that they put in the religion, where they removed plural marriage and then allowed boyfriend and girlfriend and haram relationships such as fornication to take place. It was something that was implanted in their religion. That's not something Jesus, son of Mary, taught them. Rather, that was innovated practice where they removed, like we said, plural marriages, and they put in its place what? For you to just stick to one woman while you have other little girlfriends on the side. Understand, as we'll talk about, inshallah, and how it's allowable and it's okay for you to have a side relationship and be acquainted with a man or a woman that's not your spouse, which comes as a result of it, the dissolvement of communities and people and families, and men not having fathers and women and daughters not having fathers, and which comes as a result of it, like we said, this detrimental situation of crime and hatred and not having respect for people's wealth and honor and families, because it's been destroyed. Family structure has been destroyed because of fornication and girlfriend and boyfriend relationships. طيب. So it says in this regard, we finished this hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah. And this is the hadith where we likewise stopped at from last lesson. But I didn't explain, or we didn't explain the hadith of Jabir. So that's why we took the chance or the opportunity to explain that narration or authority of Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhu ardah. Now you have the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. And Abu Hurairah, as we know, his name was who? That which was Qila, or was from it was different names. But that which is al-Rajih, you'll find from the strongest opinion, his name was Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi. Abdurrahman. Abu Hurairah, his name was Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi. And Abu Hurairah, Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi, he was originally from Yemen. As Abu Hurairah, you'll find that a lot of the Sahaba were from Yemen, that their origin was from Yemen. For example, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Abdullah ibn Qais, radiyallahu anhu arda, was originally from Yemen. He's from Ash'ari tribe. The Ash'ari tribe was emanated from Yemen. The Ash'ari tribe emanated from Yemen. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. He was also from Yemen. Abdur-Rahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi, Abu Hurairah, was also from Yemen originally. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, his name, like we said, Abdur-Rahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi, radiallahu anhu Allah. He said that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned, and this will give clarification, so you can also have details in this regard. But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا يجمع بين المرأة وعمتها ولا بين المرأة وخالتها والحديث متفق عليه. That a man does not gather between a woman and her amma and her khala. Meaning, it's not permissible at the same time for you to be married to a woman and her aunt from her father's side or her aunt from her mother's side. I'll say it again. A man gets married to a woman. Marries a woman. Once he marries her, it's not permissible for him to now marry her what? Her amma. The word amma automatically should come to your mind when you hear am, father's side. Ammatiha is the aunt from the what? Father's side, meaning the father's sister. You understand, everyone? Nor is it permissible to marry khal or khalatiha. So when you hear the word khal, what should come to your mind is the what, everyone? The mother's side. So a man cannot marry or be married to a woman and her aunt from the mother's side, nor the aunt from the what? Father's side. And as we'll talk about, also likewise, it's not permissible for him to marry at the same time what? A woman and her sister. A woman and her sister. We said it's not permissible for him, as we'll talk about in the narration. And that comes in the ayah, which we'll talk about, which is the Surah An-Nisa. وَأَن تَجْمَعُ بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ سَلَفْ. That Allah Ta'ala says in His book, that you gather between or marry at the same time two sisters, except that which has already preceded, or except that which has already taken place, meaning Jahiliyyah. So what you mean, or what we say in here, that you'll find in the ayah. As firstly, we'll read the ayah in Surah An-Nur to give us some insight of what is permissible to marry from women and what is not. So you notice in the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in His book, here it is. That Allah Ta'ala says in His book, don't forget to close the door here. Allah says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ وَبَنَاتُكُمْ وَأَخَوَاتُكُمْ وَعَمَّاتُكُمْ وَخَالَاتُكُمْ وَبَنَاتُ الْأَخِي وَبَنَاتُ الْأُخْتِ. Ayat Surah An-Nisa, which is in number 23 in Surah An-Nisa, where Allah Ta'ala says in His book that it's been made unlawful upon you to marry your mothers, to marry your daughters, to marry your sisters, to marry your ammatukum wa khalatukum, also your aunts from your what? Father's side, and your aunts from your what? Mother's side. Wa banatul akhi wa banatul ukhti wa ummahatukum allati arda'nakum wa akhawatukum min ar-rada'ah. Also, the daughters of your brother, wa banatul akh, the daughters of your brother, and the daughters of your sister, and the mothers in which had breastfed you, the women who had in which breastfed you. So you see how Islam is protocol, details, and order. It's not just hamaji, fawdawi. It's not chaotic, and it's not a savagery or type of chaotic affair. Rather, there's a system, and it's explained the details. And no religion has this detail. None. Except this haqq that Allah is going to maintain and protect from it being changed and altered to the day of resurrection. Notice Allah lays it down clear, which is clear ayat, where He says, وَأُمَّهَاتُكُمُ اللَّاتِي أَرْضَعْنَكُمْ, and also the mothers who breastfed you. Get one of those chairs right there. See these right here? These small ones? No, not you. I'm talking to you. That's it. That's one in the office. It's one in the office. Seems like he's uncomfortable. He's trying to get in a position to be. Is there any more in there? Is one more? It's on the floor. We got to continue. Also, the mothers that have in which breastfed you, and also your sisters. Use the chair, just the chair right there. You all right? That's it. No, where it says وَأَرْضَعْنَكُمْ, and your sisters from breastfeeding. That's also impermissible for one to what? Marry. Your sisters from breastfeeding. And also it says in the ayah, وَأُمَّهَاتُ نِسَائِكُمْ وَرَبَائِكُمُ اللَّاتِي فِي حُجُورِكُمْ مِنْ نِسَائِكُمُ اللَّاتِي دَخَلْتُمْ بِهِنْ. Also likewise, وَأُمَّهَاتُ نِسَائِكُمْ. Also the mothers of your wives. It's not permissible for you to marry your wife's what? Mother. Notice everything is in detail. All these things are what? Helps increase our iman that Islam is the haqq. So it's not just chaotic, you can marry who you want. It's protocol. And it's details for one to know who he can marry from women or who he cannot. So it says, the mothers of your what? Of your wives. And your raba'ib. Your raba'ibukum allati fi hujurikum min nisa'ikum allati dakhaltum bihin. Also, your stepdaughters. Your stepdaughters in which has been cultivated amongst you or cultivated under your care, from your wives in which you had entered upon their mothers. What do you mean enter upon the mothers? Meaning you was intimate with her mother. Once a man is what? Intimate with the mother of the rabiba, of the stepmother, of the mother. Once you become intimate with her, it's haram for you to marry the daughter forever. Because you were intimate with her what? With her mother. However, let's just say you married a woman, and let's just say the mother died. Even though you're engaged, you sit down, mother might have died. Is it permissible now for you to marry the daughter? We say yes, because you did not have sex with the mother. If you have sex with the mother, then what? It's permissible. Even if the mother dies, it's still impermissible for you to what? Marry the daughter. You understand? But if you were not intimate with the mother, then you can marry the what? You can marry the daughter. If you were not intimate with the mother, then you can marry the daughter. Is it clear? So you see how our religion what? Has steps, or everything is in place, everything is organized, everything is what? Detailed, explained exactly. Now, that's clear in the ayah. فَإِن لَمْ تَكُونُوا دَخَلْتُمْ بِهِنْ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ. If you did not enter her, meaning you was not intimate with the mother, then there's no problem for you to what? Marry the daughter. وَحَلَائِلُ أَبَنَائِكُمُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ أَصْلَابِكُمْ وَأَن تَجْمَعُوا بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ زَلَفْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. And your hala'il. The halal is the plural form for halila. Halila is the wife of your son. The wife of your children. It's called halila or hala'il. The plural is hala'il. The mufrad or the singular is halilatun. The plural is hala'ilu. وَحَلَائِلُ أَبْنَائِكُمْ. The zawj or the wives or the spouses of your children. The spouses of your children. Who are from your aslab, from your lineage, and that you also gather between two sisters at the same time, except that which has already preceded. Verily Allah is Ghafur Rahima. So it says in the ayat, notice that it has what? A protocol of who you can marry and who you cannot marry. There's a little bit more details that comes in the shuruh, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is the origin. As you see, it's not permissible for you to marry your mother, not permissible for you to marry your sister, your daughter, and all these disgusting things that we see taking place in these days and times. From, you see what they call, what is it again? Zawaju al-amthal, as they call it in Arabic. Zawaju al-amthal. What is they called? You have sex with a family member? Incest. I know the Arabic word, I didn't know the English word. Zawaju al-amthal. Oh no, that's homosexuality. Incest. Incest, as we know, we see taking place in this country, which is a filthy act. And you see how Islam, how highly shows and emphasizes all these affairs to show what? It's not permissible for a man to marry his mother, sister, not to marry his daughter, and all these other ones, or other different family members that one cannot marry. That's been mentioned in the ayah. However, this ayah is the asl, is the origin in this topic here. So we just read it quickly. Now we're going to talk about the hadith. If you notice in your books, it says that a man gathers between a woman and her aunt from the father's side, and the aunt from what? The mother's side. And also likewise, we'll talk about the narration in which what? It's not permissible also to marry the sister at the same time. But however, that's what we talked about last lesson, where we said that there's two categories, which we're going to break down right now. Don't worry. It says, هَؤُلَاء الْقَرِيبَاتِ يُسَبِّبُ. Why is it impermissible for a man to marry a woman and her aunt from the father's side, or aunt from the mother's side, or the sister at the same time? This is what Sheikh Salih Fawzani mentioned in this regard. He says, وَالْحِكْمَةُ فِي هَذَا أَنَّ الْجَمْعِ بين هؤلاء القريبات يسبب قطيعة الرحم لأنه معلوم غيرة النساء على أزواجهن فإذا طلق زوجته طلاقا بائنا وخرجت من العدة فله يتزوج أختها أو عمتها أو خالتها أما ما دامت في عصمته فلا يحل له ذلك حتى ولو كانت مطلقة طلاقا رجعيا فلا تزال في العدة أو مطلقة طلاقا بائنا ولا تزال في العدة فلا يجوز له أن يتزوج قريبتها حتى ينتهي النكاح نهائيا وهذا ما يسمونه بالتحريم إلى أمد لأن التحريم ينقسم إلى قسمين. That's what we're going to talk about right now. He says the reason which you will find why this is prohibited is because to gather between all these different women, the aunt from the father's side, the aunt from the mother's side, and the sister, he says it will cause breaking the ties of kinship and separating the family. Meaning, it is known that he says jealousy of women over their what? Husbands, over their spouses. فَإِذَا طَلَّقَ زَوْجَتَهُ. For verily he was to divorce his wife. The divorce where the marriage is over. The type of divorce that where if he's to divorce her, the marriage is what? Over. And her iddah elapsed and is finished. Then it's permissible for him to marry her sister, or the aunt, or from the mother's side, or from the father's side. After the iddah is over. Not during the iddah. After the iddah is over. Because now she's not your wife anymore. Here in this instance, it's now permissible for him to marry his what? Marry her sister, or marry her aunt, whether it be from the father's side or the mother's side. طيب. However, as long as she's under his care, ما دامت في عصمته, as long as she is under his care, it is not permissible and it's unlawful for him to do that. Even if he was to divorce his wife a final divorce, the talaq ba'in, or talaq raj'i, حتى ولو كانت مطلقة طلاقا رجعيا. Even if she was divorced, and if it was the final divorce, even a divorce where he could take her back, as long as she's in iddah. And even if it was the final divorce, where it was on the third, where now it's obligatory for them to separate, and she's still in the iddah, it is not permissible for him to what? Marry any of her relatives. Until the nikah is over totally and finally. حتى ينتهي النكاح نهائيا. Until the marriage is totally over and finalized. This is what they break down. If you'll find Ahl al-Ilm say that the tahrim, or the unlawfulness of certain relatives in the family break down into two categories. You have tahrim, what they call unlawfulness, to a certain appointed time. Number one, they call tahrim ila amad. Tahrimun ila amad. What is unlawful? To an appointed time. To a period of time. Or an appointed term, if you want to say. Appointed time. Tahrim ila amad. And unlawful to a certain or period of time. The example of that is here in the hadith, which is what, everyone? Between the sister or the what? The aunt from the mother's side or the father's side. While they're still, or while you're still married to that sister, it's unlawful. Unless the wife either what? Unless she passes away, or you divorce her. You understand? So here in those instances, if she passes away, rahimahullah, I'm just joking. She passes away, or he divorces her. Astaghfirullah. You had to laugh. You had to smile at me, right? Astaghfirullah. If she passes away, or he divorces her, remember we said the iddah has to still be what? It has to be over. If her iddah is still, she's still in the iddah, is still the tahrim or the unlawfulness of you marrying her, it's still what? Valid. Still takes its what? Its course. Until the marriage is totally over and the marriage contract is done, then the tahrim or the unlawfulness becomes lifted, now this type of marriage that is unlawful at one time, now it's raised, so it's now permissible. Jayyid. So that's an example of what they call tahrim ila amad. It's unlawful to an appointed time or appointed term or specific time. Then you have the second category, which is called tahrim ila al-abad. Tahrimun ila al-abad. Unlawful forever. Unlawful forever. Unlawful forever. Unlawful forever, such as your mother. It's not permissible for you to marry your mother ever. Your sister, your daughter, that's tahrim ila al-abad. It's unlawful forever. It's never permissible for you to marry those relatives. Or those ones who are your immediate relatives, or your immediate family. Also, don't forget, even in alat, as they said, in alat, even if it goes up beyond that, meaning, if that's with your mother, then the jadda or jiddatik, or the grandfathers or the grandmothers, are even more, for all the more reason that it's impermissible. You understand? Also, your grandfather, your grandmother, of course, it's that regards to a woman. Your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, great-grandfather is even more what? It's also all the more reason. You have to say this because we live in some disgusting days and times. Anybody just does anything they want, anything they feel. There's no boundaries or nothing anymore. And you just do what you feel, which is pathetic. That's chaos. You can't just do what you want in this world and not think there's no what? Boundaries. Without boundaries, it's chaos. You can't put chaos, take it out the equation, just put the word liberation in the sentence. Does it change the reality of it? Does it change the reality of chaos or not? You just decorate it by using the word what? Liberation. But it's still what? Chaos. Huh? You understand, everyone? There has to be boundaries on everything, every aspect of life. There has to be a boundary. Like we said, otherwise, chaos leads to what? More chaos. And people don't understand until it starts to affect them. And how we're living in this whole world in general. All because of people transgress bounds has affected all of us, even though we don't realize it, either directly or indirectly. Whether it be for us going to the airports and the kuffar now are checking us even more. What's that from? from somebody else that did a stupid action. So now we're getting harassed and we're getting violated. Our women are getting violated. From what? Due to so what? An act that some other knucklehead did. Right or wrong? So, all these things have an effect on us either directly or indirectly. Also, likewise, we said, وَلَا إِشْكَالٍ. So that is the second category. تَحْرِيم إِلَى الْأَبَدِ. Just leave it. Even Sheikh Uthaymeen mentioned this regard where he says, إِذَا قَالَ قَائِلٍ هَلْ مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ أُخْتُهَا مِنَ الرَّضَاعِ. Now we want to mention all the ahkam about for example, the grandmother, the grandfather, the mother, the aunt, also your daughter, also likewise, also which we mentioned in the ayah. Is this comprehensive from also likewise your relatives from breastfeeding? For example, your mother who breastfed you, or any woman that breastfed you, and likewise her children. Let me make it clear to everyone. If you let your child, or let a woman breastfeed your child, breastfeed her, I think it's what is after the fifth one or the fifth suckling? What, fourth or the fifth? I gotta check the hadith, I can't remember right now. After the certain amount of sucklings, after that, that woman now has become your son's mother. So if you have a child, you let another woman breastfeed your son. That woman now to your son is her mother. All the ahkam of the woman as if that is now his blood mother. It's the same ahkam. Also now her children, all those that is now his sisters and her brothers. The same. It takes the exact same ahkam. You understand now? It's not permissible for him now to marry his breastfeeding mother, or his sister, or her children, and also likewise their brothers to the end of it. You understand? Due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, يُحَرِّمُ مِنَ الرَّضَاعِ مَا يُحَرِّمُ مِنَ النَّسَبِ. That rada' makes unlawful what lineage or what's blood family or blood lineage also makes what? Unlawful. Just to sum it up. Jayyid? Because there's a lot of details in this, but if you hold on to that, all the other details will become easy once we speak about it and mention it. Which says, فَإِذَا حَرَّمَ الْجَمْعِ بَيْنِ الْأُخْتَيْنِ. If it's impermissible to gather between two sisters, they are blood sisters, likewise it's impermissible to gather between two from what? From what? From blood suckling, or from milk suckling. Blood suckling. Milk suckling. Sabqa lisani. My tongue preceded my brain. From breastfeeding. Either impermissible for one to gather between the woman and the uncle from the father's side and the uncle from the aunt from the father's side or the aunt from the mother's side. That likewise it's the same ahkam in regards to gather between both from what? From breastfeeding. Same hukum. Doesn't change. And as they say, al-Majariyyah. And so on and so forth. So it's not permissible to do any of those things. Also, likewise, there's another example I'll give, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, because I wanted to give everybody something bit by bit. طيب فإذا فالرجل يتزوج الحرة وله يتزوج أربعا. Now listen, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he gives a good detail, and he gives some benefits in regards to what he said about polygyny. He mentioned it here. Now I'll read it real quickly where he says, كما يدل الحديث على جواز تعدد الزوجات. He said this hadith in your books here, this book, he said, is an indication for the permissibility, how a person can marry multiple what? Women. As long as it's not from the what? The group that we mentioned here in the ayah. He says permissible for ta'addud az-zawjat, for a man to marry more than one woman. Up to what? 4. That's the what? Limit. Ta'addud az-zawjat. Like everybody starts to get attentive when you talk about this. Everybody starts to listen. The eyes go from sleeping to waking up. Yes. طيب. تنكح المرأة على عمتها. For a man does not marry a woman and her aunt and from the mother's side, and the mother's side or the father's side. He said this love. He says a woman is not married. And the Prophet ﷺ said that a woman لا تنكح المرأة على عمتها ولا على خالتها. That a woman is not given marriage or married over her what? Over her aunt, meaning he gathers between both of them. The aunt from the father's side, the aunt from the mother's side. He says in this is the permissibility, or it's extracted the benefit, the permissibility for a man to marry another woman. If they are not from these two what? Types that was mentioned in the hadith. If she's from a ajnabiyya, a woman that's a what? That's not in the family. That they don't have, ليس بينها وبين زوجته أخوة ولا عمومة ولا خؤولة فلا هو يتزوج الثانية والثالثة والرابعة. Can marry a second, third, fourth. As it says in the ayah, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَبْ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Hence, listen. إذن فالرجل يتزوج الحرة. And he can marry four. Now this is what Sheikh Salih Fawzan mentions. والمصالح في تعدد الزوجات كثيرة جدا للزوج وللزوجة. He says for a man, he says the benefits in marrying multiple wives up to four, because nobody can say multiple wives and they think they could do just like the Shia do. The Shia do, they 9, 10, 11, all the other crazy things they do. He says for ta'addud az-zawjat, he says it has a lot of benefits in it. For the husband and the wife. For the husband and the wife. Listen to what he says. لا تخفى على ذي بصيرة. It is not hidden from the one who has insight, or the one who possesses insight. لأنه لو قصر الرجل على امرأة واحدة مع كثرة النساء لتعطل كثير من النساء. لأن النساء في المجتمع أكثر من الرجال. Listen to what he says. If a man was just to suffice by marrying one woman, despite of the multiple high numbers of women out there, he says لتعطل كثير من النساء. A lot of women will be broke down. No one would be what? Taking care of them and aiding them and helping them and sufficing them and taking care of their necessities. He said that a lot of women will be broken down. He says because women inside of societies are more usually than men. He says لأن النساء في المجتمع أكثر من الرجال. Usually in most societies they are more than what? Men. And their number. He says from women they will be broken down. He says what happen is what they call al-unusa. Al-unusa meaning they will be in the houses for a long period of time, not having anyone to what? Take care of them, for them to be, basically, they will not be married at all, just sitting in the houses for a long time. No one to marry, not being married at all. That's what they call, or they, in the Arabic language, they call it unus. Don't leave it, do leave it. What they call it unus. The unus is sitting in the house a long time, not being married. That's what it means, unus. So, anasatil mar'a. Anasatil mar'a. Anasa, ayn nun sin, means that a woman is what? Sits in the house for a long time without being married or not being with a what? A man. Hopefully, the way she's supposed to not be with a man. طيب. وتحصل العنوس والضرر. What will come is a woman will sit in the house a long time, not being married, and harm will come. He said because women, they need kafara, one to what? Sponsor them and aid them and help them. And they need qawwam. They need to be what? Someone to watch and take care of their affairs. He says, فَكَوْنُ الرَّجُلِ يَقُومُ عَلَى أَرْبَعٍ فِيهِ إِسْهَامٌ فِي الْقَضَاءِ عَلَى الْعُنُوسَ. He says, for a man now to be married up to four, of course, or marry multiple wives in it, he says, is participating and aiding in destroying what they call unusa. Unusa. Unusa meaning that a woman is sitting in the house a long time not being married, with no one to take care of them, no one to help them, no one to also satisfy their desires. They're human beings. He says, so women will become broken down. Of course, also the danger of that, they start to resort to what? Haram. Women will start resorting to what? Unlawful matters. فَهَذَا فِيهِ مَصْلَحَةِ النِّسَاءِ أَكْثَرُ مِنْهُ فِي مَصْلَحَةِ الرِّجَالِ. He says, in this is a benefit of women more than what? The benefit of the men. Or minhu, أَكْثَرُ مِنْهُ فِي مَصْلَحَةِ الرِّجَالِ. He says, why? Because the men, they're the ones that take on the burden of what? Of being responsible. And they're the ones that take on the what? The spending. And they're the ones that take on the what? The qiwama. Of being watchers and maintainers. and aiding them. He says, وَالْمَرْأَةَ تَسْتَثْمِرُ فَيُكُونُ لَهَا نَفَقَةً. A woman will benefit, and she will have someone spending on her, taking care of her. She'll have a place to live, and she'll be able to what? Fulfill her desires in a manner that she what? Wants. She can fulfill her what? Desires. قَضَاءُ وَطَرٍ. He says this is her benefit, and if she doesn't get married, then this stuff will what? Break down. He says, الرجال يعتريهم آفات أكثر مما يعتري النساء. He says for the men, what aids or what also, what afflicts them, he says is more things which are afat. He said more detrimental affairs. More things are more drastic than what afflicts women. What do you mean by that? For example, wars break out. Wars break out, battles break out. يواجهون أخطارا. The men, they're the ones that engage those which are those of danger, those dangerous matters. They're the ones that engage those dangerous affairs. Does women, are they supposed to fight in wars? No. They're not supposed to fight in battles at all. Despite what the Khawarij do, that's something with deviant sects. Of course, they don't have no play in what we're talking about. That's a deviant sect. Can't use them as evidence. He says, وَقَدْ يَمُوتُ الْكَثِيرُ مِنْهُمْ فِي الْحُرُوبِ. A lot of men, they will die inside of wars and battles because of them engaging in those wars and battles. And they also die in hawadith. They also die in certain catastrophes. How many men that go outside, of course, they're working, fall, hurt themselves, something happens. They die because they're more prone to it. Men are more prone, of course. They're dying because of the wars and the things they have to go out and do to maintain their families. He says, for now, فَتَذْهَبُ الْأَعْدَادُ الْكَثِيرَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ. So a lot of numbers of men are decreasing. And they're less. He said the women will become awanis. This comes from the unusa, same thing. For in this is one of the reasons why Allah, one of the reasons why He made it permissible for ta'addud, for a man to have multiple women or multiple wives, in order to destroy this problem in the society. He says likewise, he says also likewise, listen to this, كَذَلِكَ الْمَرْأَةِ يَعْتَرِيهَا الْحَيْض وَالنِّفَاسِ وَالْوِلَادَةِ. Also women, likewise, a woman also, what happens to her and takes place in regards to the woman, she gets immense. She gets also likewise what they call postnatal bleeding. And she also what? Becomes pregnant. What will come as a result of it is what? يَتَعَطَّرُ الرِّجَالِ. If she was just to have one wife, then likewise the men will also find hardship due to these affairs. A woman having immense, a woman having postnatal bleeding, a woman being pregnant. He said, فَيَتَعَطَّرُ الرِّجَالِ. So now the men start to now face what? A little stress. If he was to only restrict himself just to one. Now this is what Sheikh Salih Fawzan goes on to say. He says, especially if he's young and he's strong in his desires. And we know that Allah, the way He naturally created a man, naturally, of course, if a man takes care of himself and he does what he's supposed to do physically, he will have a very strong desire. And it will be more than just what? Just for one woman. And I know, I've heard this complaints a couple of times, and I heard this in Philadelphia. A woman say, my husband, he's very strong. He's too much. I would prefer him maybe get another woman. He has a lot of strength. And I can't take it. My body can't take it. You understand? It's true. I'm not saying this joking. I'm not laughing. I'm serious. Women will complain. They say to my husband, he takes care of him, mashallah. Allah has blessed him. He eats well. He works out well. He's strong. And my body can't take it. You have to get another woman. And Allah had made us men to naturally have extra strength more than a what? More than a woman, physically. So he says, لَيْسَ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا وَاحِدًا. He says that if he was to restrict himself, then it will be a lot of stress on the man. If he just restricted himself to one, especially if he's youthful and he's strong in his desires. فَإِذَا تَزَوَّجْ أَكْثَرْ مِنْ وَاحِدًا كَانَ فِي ذَلِكَ الزَّوَالِ الضَّرَرَ عَنْهُ. And if he gets married to more than one, he said, for verily this will remove this harm from him. So this is not my words, it's Sheikh Salih Fawzan. So listen what he says. وَمَعْلُومْ كَذَلِكَ أَنَ الْمَرْأَةِ. He said, likewise, he said, it is known that women reached an age what they call sin al-iyas, or sin al-yats, where she goes to what? Menopause, and she's not to be able to get pregnant after a certain age. Or the chances of her becoming pregnant is very lot, what? The percentage decreases dramatically of her getting pregnant at a certain age. Usually around the 40s and the 50s. Usually the normal time is the 50s. But due to the fact that the society we live in now, due to a lot of different, probably maybe because of diet and not being lazy or not moving as much, it decreased to now, woman goes through menopause now, 41, 42, 40. Right or wrong? He says usually women will reach the age of menopause when she's not able to have children anymore in the 50s. So now, usually, once a woman cannot have children, the desire for the woman now what? Decreases. Because men want to have what? Children. He says, وَتَنْتَهِ الرَّغْبَ فِيهَا. He says, for as for men, he said, then they can continue and they have might and they have strength and they have preparation to what? To keep going for a long time. He says, even until they're able to the age of when they become elderly. Right or wrong? He says, فَلَيَنْ يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَبْقَى بَقِيَّةَ عُمْرِهِ مَحْرُومًا مِنَ الذُّرِّيَّةِ وَمَحْرُومًا مِنَ الْمُتْعَةِ. He said this will necessitate that the man, for the rest of his age and the duration of his age, that he'll be now deprived of having a family, and he'll also be deprived of also having that mut'a, or having that pleasure of indulging in what is permissible for him. He says this is in contrast to what Allah legislated, in contrast to the benefit, and also includes the benefits in which Allah made for this affair. He says, for the hikam and ta'addud zawjat, the wisdom in having multiple wives, he said, is many. It's plural. I mean, it's so many you can't even count it. Listen to what he goes on to say. Al-Anbiya alayhim as-salatu was-salam addad az-zawjat. He said the prophets, all of them have more than, he says, addad az-zawjat. He said they had multiple wives. And we know that Isa ibn Maryam, when he returns, he's also going to what? Get married. So the Christians can't use that as a hujjah, Isa. Nah, when he comes back, when he returns, because you believe he's going to return too. And just like Isa, we believe he's going to return. And he's going to also tell the Christians he never died on the cross in the first place. So don't forget that part either. And he's going to also get married. So all the prophets what? Were married. And all the majority of the prophets, not all the prophets, all had multiple what? Wives. Addad az-zawjat. Sulaiman was known. Of course we know. Sulaiman was known. And all the prophets. Addad az-zawjat, and it was something that was known. He says, and it's not only specifically for the Sharia al-Islamiyah. He said, rather from the innovations of the Christians, he said they prohibited this. Prohibited ta'addud, and it is not from the legislation of Allah. Allah did not legislate this. As Allah Ta'ala says in his book, what's the ayah? No. Where it says, وَرَهْبَانِيَّةً ابْتَدَعُوهَا مَا كَتَبْنَاهَا عَلَيْهِمْ إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ فَمَا رَعَوْهَا حَقَّ رِعَايَتِهَا فَآتَيْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ وَكَثِيرٌ مِنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he says about the Christians, he said they came with this rahbaniyah, with it being a monk or priest, not getting married. Listen to what Allah says. He refuted it in his book, where Allah says, this is something they innovated. He says, we did not make it and oblige it upon them and make it obligatory upon them to practice this. Except that we told them to seek the face of Allah. And listen to what Allah says in the ayah. He said, despite them making this affair obligatory upon them to practice, they did not fulfill it. فَمَا رَعَوْهَا حَقَّ رِعَايَتِهَا. He said, we gave those who believe from them a reward. He said, majority of them are sinful, and they are what people that transgress the bounds. So you see how the Quran is, the ayat in the book of Allah is like haq. It's like bang, bang, bang. It's like a clear arrow of truth. Like you can't deny it. It's like, yeah, that's exactly their reality. How many of them priests we hear touching children? How many of them priests we hear even secretly getting married? How many of them priests we hear secretly having children or having families on the side? Because that's not what they were made for. Allah didn't practice that and tell them to do that. They innovated that practice and made that obligatory upon them, and it was something that Allah did not make them for obliged upon them to practice. Also, likewise, from those innovative matters is prohibiting multiple wives. Allah did not legislate that. That's another innovation that they put in their religion, that your man just restricts himself to one woman. That's another innovative practice of theirs. So now, listen to what Sheikh Salih Fawzan goes on to say. He said, وَلَيْسَ خَاصَ, مَنَعُ التَّعَدُّدْ وَلَيْسَ هُوَ مِنْ شَرْعِ اللَّهِ. He says, فَالنَّصْرَانِيَّ يَبْقَى, he says, for now, what they call to the Christians, that one just suffice for one woman. He said, oh, now listen what he goes on to say. But however, it's no problem that you have a girlfriend. But it's no problem that you have يُعَاشِرُ يُصَادِقْ مَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ فِي الْحَرَامِ, that you're able to live on or take on a girlfriend and do what you want and things which are unlawful, having girlfriends and indulging in multiple women and other different things that we know that is going on out here. That you indulge in these type of things are haram. That's not nasty, but a man getting married to more than one woman is deemed to be what? Nasty with them. He says, لِأَنَّهُمْ مَنَعُوا التَّعَدُّدِ, because they prohibited this what? Plural marriage in zawaj, and then they switched it. Now they go on to what? What is unlawful. He says, وَالَّذِينَ يَشُنُّونَ الْحَمَلَاتِ ضِدَّ تَعَدُّدِ الزَّوْجَاتِ مُتَأَثِّرٌ بِالنَّصَارَى. He says, those who now set those wars and attacks against plural marriages, they have been affected by the Christians. وَيَتَكَلَّمُونَ بِلِسَانِ غَيْرِهِمْ بِزَعْمِهِمْ أَنَّ هَذَا فِيهِ ظُلْمِ الزَّوْجَاتِ. And he says, and the Muslims now speak a tongue that's not from them, and it's other than them, with their claim that this, or so-called multiple wives, and it is oppression. And likewise, a woman walking around with tight clothes on, a woman walking around showing her breasts and showing her beauty and showing her hair and wiggling her booty on a video, that's liberation. That's oppression. So then he says, وَالَّذِي يَشُنُّ وَيَتَكَلَّمُ كَلَّا فَلَيْسَ فِي هَذَا الظُّلْمِ. He says, rather we say this is not oppression for women. He says, وَلَكِنْ فِيهِ عَدْلٌ لَهُنْ. In it is being just towards them, being equitable for them, and in it is good. He says, وَلَوْ قُدِّرَ أَنَّ رَجُلًا يُسِيء إِلَى زَوْجَاتِهِ فَهَذَا يُمْنَعُ مِنَ الْإِسَاءَةِ. He says, now if it's been determined that a man, that he's evil to his family or to his wives, of course. He says, then we prohibited him from dealing with them or mistreating them. And he stops at the boundaries that Allah sets, and Allah Ta'ala has made it obligatory upon the man to be just. What do we mean just? Just as far as what, everyone? As far as the huquq of the zawj, as far as the rights of the spouses, as far as providing for them. Not as far as the heart of loving them. That is not what? Obligatory. Because no one owns that. No one owns your heart, what you're inclined to, except Allah. You understand? But however, one is not supposed to what? Display it or show it. One is not supposed to say, well, I love her more than you. That's impermissible for you to say to your wife, I love her more than you. Because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, whoever leans towards one, do it after the other, he will come on the day of resurrection, what? Leaning. That's in regards to the affairs of what? That's in the regards of the affairs of the huquq of the zawj, as far as dress and as far as spending and as far as him having a place to stay. Not as far as who you love the most. Because that you can't control. You understand? But you're not supposed to show it. As much as possible, not supposed to show it at all. You might find one attractive more than the other, or one that is inclined towards the other a little bit. On one loving one's conversation more than the other. That's something that's what? Something jibilli, fitri. But you're not supposed to show it. And tell your other wife, for example, oh yeah, my conversations are better than yours. You're me, you dry. I don't like you. I don't like the way you talk. I don't like the way you speak. You're not supposed to say that, brother. That's not how you mistreat. That's not how you treat a woman. Don't what? Display it. We know that you might like one toward the other, but it's incumbent upon the one not to show it. As far as your inside of what your heart what? Inclined towards. You understand? طيب. Sisters, we'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم بارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. The Arabic term تحريم إلى الأبد. إلى الأبد means أبدا. أبد. تحريم إلى الأبد. إلى الأبد. Even the kuffar now are starting to realize that poor marriages is the truth. They even know it. They even starting to realize it. They even all over the world now. They're starting to realize that. There's no way that a man was just restricted to just be with one woman. There's no way. Some situations, yes, because some men out there just say, "Listen, one is suffice me. It's enough. It's more than enough for me." But a lot of men, as we know, the way Allah created them, as far as in their bodies and how strong they are, and how, then we know that they incline towards usually more than what one woman. Just something that's known. It was something known in society that was acceptable. This didn't become uglified until this modern day so-called imperialism of America came, where we see every type of atrocity made unlawful for one to do, whether it be from pornos, homosexuality, to bestiality, to what they call that filthy group sex, whatever nonsense. All that's good. It's liberation. But a man getting married to more than one woman is what? It's filthy. You understand? Tafadhal. That's not a hujjah. That's not an argument. Listen, our sisters need to I have good thoughts for our sisters. From the aspect, some out there probably do, and Allah knows best, needs to be taught, where they might have something in their heart towards polygyny. Some women out there still are affected by the ideologies of the West, not realizing this filthy ideology is something that's binding upon them to rid themselves of. Because when you say La ilaha illallah, you saying that I now believe that everything you, Allah, legislates is perfect and correct. When you say La ilaha illallah, that's what's binding upon you. To say, you are now saying everything that you legislate, everything that you have sent down of revelation is perfect. So a woman has to be very careful when she says, "Listen, I'm not feeling it. I don't see the benefit in it." Well, that's your opinion. And your opinion has no place when it comes to Allah. So we say for those women that have a problem with it, if you still want to be affected by the Western so-called imperialism or the so-called Eurocentric Americanized society, fine. If not what's going on in this side of the world of chaos and bloodshed and criminality and people shooting themselves and families destroyed and nobody has respect for each other and families and men and women don't know who their fathers are. Men and women, how many men and women are from our societies out here don't know who their father or father they don't have no father, all because of this stupid porn or this filthy premarital nonsense that's pumped in our heads that's permissible. And what comes as a result of it, breaking down the family structure. All of us witness it. We see it every day. Since the time I've been, from 1995, from the time up to now, and I was listening to looking at the applications, even of women. Majority, I would say 80% of them didn't have fathers or didn't know their father. What's that come from? Fornication. And the majority of the brothers that come to the masjid, they'll tell you, "Man, I don't know who my father was. I don't know who that dude was." Even my family and other families. Man, my father, I never heard from him a day in my life. I don't even know what he looked like. Huh? It is. It's destroyed society. It's destroyed it. What that leads to? Crime. So I say to those sisters, you see it every day, this pathetic nonsense, what it leads to. You see it. It's manifest, materializing in front of all of us to see. We live it every day. And despite of that, you want to come now and say, I'm not feeling that. I'll make good thoughts and say to sisters that maybe you don't like the way certain brothers are practicing it. That's the proper words to say. Don't say you have a problem with Allah's ruling. That's a major problem. Because that shows a discrepancy in your aqeedah somewhere, that you're not saying, oh Allah, I'm not, that hukm, I'm not content with that. I'm not feeling that. So let's just say we have good thoughts for our sisters and say, you just don't like the way certain brothers are practicing it. Not the fact that there's some discrepancy with Allah's revealed. La. The problem is you probably had some bad experiences with some bad brothers who mistreated you. Let's just say, blame that on the person. Don't blame it on Allah's religion. How Allah legislated for us to practice and what He has sent down is perfect. Men practicing it, something different. That's probably the 15th time that's happened. What Allah legislated is what the men, how they practice it is different. We don't condone men having girlfriends. We don't condone men mistreating their wives, domestically abusing them in the house, domestically or mentally breaking down their esteem. You fat, ugly girl, I'm tired of you because you fat. And talking to women like that. And I'm being realistic. This is how these men speak to these women. And I'm like, where do you get that from? That's not from our religion to speak to a woman like that. You just fat, girl. I don't like man, those stretch marks on your body. But you just fat. That's the reason why I want to get married again. No, you want to get married again because you're a man. And Allah has put desire in you. And even if she had the body of a model, you still will want a second wife. Even if her body was flawless, no stretch marks, hourglass figure, whatever you like, you are a man and you want to get married again because Allah has said this is how He's created a man at the end of the day. So if you know this is the case, it's not permissible for you to speak to a woman in this manner. Say you fat, you got stretch marks, varicose veins. I can't stand looking at that every day. It's not permissible. That's due to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لا يفرق المؤمن مؤمنا فإذا رضي بها خلقا إذا كره منها خلقا رضيها بها الآخر. Do not let a man detest or speak ill or speak in a vile manner to another mu'mina. If he detests something from her, from a specific behavior, then he'll appreciate and like something other. Something about her other that pleases you. So our thing is, our men that beat these women down, beat their self-esteem down, those men that are practicing polygyny in this manner, we do not defend them. And we tell our brothers to what? To improve their akhlaq and to improve their dealings with their families and not to speak to a woman in this manner. And not to play mental games and emotional games with these women. Because like we said, all of us has daughters in here. Majority of us. Not all of us, a majority of us. There will be a time where you're going to have to marry your daughter off. And you will not appreciate a man saying you ugly, fat, make me sick, I don't like the way you look, you fat, or you someone smacking your daughter up in her hair, smack her in her face, kicking her down the steps. I'm sure you don't want any man to do that to your daughter. Because I know I wouldn't. So that's the reason why we say to the women who say this, listen, I don't like the way some of the brothers are practicing it. But I don't have no problem with plural marriages. Because you shouldn't. But say that I don't like the way the men are practicing it. I don't like the way they're treating their wives. I don't like the way they're treating their families. I don't like how they're dealing with them. And my husband talks to me, my husband talks to me in a certain manner, and he makes it known that he likes his wife more than me. Those things, we're not defending that. So that's Allah knows best. You stopped it? You stopped it. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. Huh? Who?